so it's on record, and then we just start.
Okay,
So
so this
that
is,
would be your job to
To do it.
read the names.
Oh, okay.
call the roll.
Call
That
the
is
roll,
different
yeah.
than all the other ones, but okay.
Okay,
No, that's fine.
In lieu of having a chair,
Yeah. This meeting is called to order at 5:45 p.m. Call roll. Roll Doan is excused. Halise Dubnik is excused. Peter Gafford,
I'm here.
James Richmond,
I'm here.
Joan Hanson is excused. Dwayne Wallace, I am definitely here. Theodore Ruff.
I am here.
Is that Emily or Emil?
Emily,
Emily Vardman
I am also here.
and Evie Wood.
Evie Wood.
Evie Wood.
I am here.
My
I
daughter's
always
name.
wanna say Evie.
Yeah, well, my daughter's name is Ebony, and we call her Evie for short. So
Oops, I've been called that.
We have a quorum.
And we have a quorum. So then at this point, is this where it's open to the public, where it says call to the public?
yes,
I think the public, okay, I think that's complete then, isn't it?
Yes.
So, agenda item 1 for discussion only, water and water resources. So,
Just as an aside, I apologize, but I was away for the last meeting, so I'm going back now 6 months, and my memory doesn't barely tell me what I did yesterday, but we were we going through the plan, and then we were gonna make some improvements, upgrades or whatever.
So,
Was that,
I think
what-
Elise was working on food security. Oh, that wasn't in the plan.
My memory on the plan was that we were going to start with some pilot projects rather than going through another revision of the plan.
right, okay.
And I think that we had selected, as a committee, we'd selected 1 or 2, but I can't remember what they were.
well, my recollection is one of them we selected was LED lighting,
Correct.
Mhm.
but then we found out that the city is already doing LED lighting.
That's my memory as well. But one of them was going to be LED lighting. But it's not our job to implement the suggestions we made. If we made a suggestion to the city, to the council, that they consider LED lighting, we're
And
done.
they
at
jumped on
that
it
point.
fast.
well,
Our
and
work here is
in
through.
my with my experience in committees, there's very few that actually have power. However, all of the committees do come up with recommendations to council, and usually give that to Joan, and she brings that to council. Having like the Sustainability Commission do some research on the LED lighting, so that when that comes to council and hey, this is the recommendation, that will help carry more weight, because from my experience going to these council meetings, that they're not gonna, some of them aren't gonna do a lot of research on these things, and having a committee, but they do take the committee's recommendations pretty well. So having a committee look into LED lighting or whatever it is and put that forth, especially in Bisbee, can go a long way, because we get the council to vote on it and then direct staff.
Yeah.
That's how we get things done.
But that's already happened. The city is looking at the
Yes,
LED.
staff is looking on it. It's
Okay.
just if we have getting the backing of the committee for something like that. If it's something the committee's interested in, of course. I'm not gonna say you guys should do this because I say so.
We already did.
Yeah, okay.
We
Looked into
voted
this,
to
yes.
recommend
Yes.
Okay.
that the city move towards LED lighting.
Okay.
So, that person, so.
Perfect.
But I guess do we not know whether or not that was carried to the city council?
I can't remember. I go to all the meetings. I can't remember.
Joan,
It would have been 6 months ago.
Right.
It might have even been a year ago.
No,
when she brought her review up, and you did your investigation, Joan would have taken those minutes.
yeah,
Yeah, I thought it was after you did your research and you brought that to the commission meeting.
yeah.
is when that was.
And so I think Joan was going to take it to the city.
Do you remember the date at all?
I do not.
I don't either.
But I think we sat in, no, I don't remember if we were in this room or not.
The last meeting we had was in this, but that would have been 2 meetings.
See, I thought I could distinctly remember discussing LEDs in the conference, in the council room in the old town hall, and how long ago was it that that?
Oh, that's when we first started talking about it. But I did my report, and I went there and had my meeting in about January or February, and I think so I must have made my report.
I distinctly remember, I think it was a unanimous vote.
Yeah, we voted.
I distinctly remember that part, so, but I don't remember what room we were in when we made that
So
vote.
Joan should have, or most likely did carry it forward. In any event, the city's doing what they're doing our bidding in.
I remember there was some discussion and some concern before the vote in relationship to light pollution at night, and we were worried that the LEDs would be brighter than the incandescent.
You know, and that's something that I've learned, that they're not. They do give off a different type of light, and that can be tailored. Part of the engineering for this project would be to see what type of light works best in each location, whether it's a warmer light or a brighter light. And I did, you know, because you get an LED flashlight, it's on, and that's all you get.
Yes.
With the LED streetlights, there's a lot of different ways to actually.
And the way they can adjust the angle,
It-
so it does not go
Right.
into housing. I really liked that.
Yeah.
So in Old Bisbee, it wouldn't be like this, it would be like this. So it would
With
go
the
across
shielding,
road.
Yeah, exactly, with the shielding, and you don't get the spread, because it's more of a direct beam.
Yeah, but you can get more spread
Yes.
depending on how, and I really liked that, cause I
Did-
thought, boy, that's perfect for Old
Didn't
Bisbee.
you even do a field trip to?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
went up and I walked under all the different colors of lighting and,
I remember
with
that
the-
report you gave,
yeah,
it was very
That's
comprehensive.
February 5th,
you're good.
just notes.
Wow.
But I mean, if you did, we were going to suggest that the Warren Vista be
Yeah,
our substation
and
in
so-
Tryon first.
We voted on it at the meeting after that. I did my report, but I don't think we could vote it, so it would have been May
Okay.
that we
Okay.
voted to send it to
Possibly.
council. Cause then I missed the next meeting and now we're here. That makes sense.
Dwayne, as an aside, one of the concerns and one of the reasons for doing this was the incredible amount of money that the city has to pay APS.
Yes, and that's one of the benefits.
How's that all gonna sort of
Well,
work itself out?
we will get, I don't know the finites yet, because of course it hasn't been passed or
Right.
proposed. My understanding of this project is, we would receive a load, there's funding out there, for, let's say the stuff at the wastewater plant, you can get WIFA funds, because that's directly for water and wastewater infrastructure. And then there's other funding agents, usually private, you get better deals with private funding than you do government funding. So that loan would carry and pay for the project. The savings from that project go to pay for that loan. Now, it would take, you know, depending on the term of the loan, it could take 10 years, 15 years to pay off the term of that loan. At the end of that, we get this, that's where we get the savings from.
Yes.
Because then, which would free up HERF money, because we pay for all of our lights through HERF, which is supposed to go to paving the street, not lighting the street, but that's just, that's miniature the
So
miniature.
initially there would be no savings.
Yeah, exactly, I mean, we would get in the short term are the new stuff, whether, you know, the lights, the air conditioning, heating, things like that. That's what we would get.
The way Chandler was doing it, they didn't do the whole city, cause they said that would be just, you know, huge. They did this section, they got a small loan, paid it off fairly quickly, and then they do another section and pay it off fairly quickly. So, you know, it would mean analyzing and targeting where we get the most bang for the buck, where
Yeah.
the,
One of the benefits, though, of doing the project at once, especially in a town our size, is you get all the engineering done at once, so
That's
that,
true.
so that, because there's, especially.
But a disadvantage is they improve those lights
Yes,
every year.
yes.
So Chandler Part One is good, but it's not as efficient as Chandler Part
Part
Three.
two, yeah, or part two and part,
Indeed,
yeah,
indeed.
so,
So-
I wonder how, like, I wonder if part one of Chandler is the size of Bisbee.
Well, you know, it could be almost,
Yeah, that's what I wonder, is like, how big are those chunks that,
you know, I don't know, he might have told me and I don't remember.
and whereas, you know, whereas Chandler probably just did lighting, we're going for an overall package of different,
Right,
of different, you know, electrical savings, energy efficiency, cause it's lighting, it's heating and cooling on all the buildings,
excellent.
you know,
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. especially, you know, at the library, things like that, and wastewater improvement, it's one large project.
That's.
That way you get all, you know, you get a swarm of engineers come down, they start doing you know, do it all at once, and then you get the one loan to pay for the whole thing, and then, you know, part of it gets paid here, and, that's the idea. City manager actually went through this, I'm not sure which town he was at, he actually went through this and brought it all the way to the final, in between the council saying, yes, this is what we wanna do, to go for final approval, the council switched over, and, you know, it got to the very, very end, and then didn't happen, but, yeah, that's, but I think there's a lot of, there's a lot of backing nowadays, just, you know,
Mhm.
locally and globally for energy efficiency, and, you know, and if this is the way to do it, get it done, I'm all for it, because we can't, you know, I don't have the money to spend on this stuff, but if there's a way to finance it and, you know.
Mhm.
Okay.
So, water,
Yeah, so water, so do we want to discuss whether or not we have any projects? Cause it says for discussion only, so I don't know if that means, that we're discussing projects, or are we discussing revisions to the plan in that section?
I don't know, but you know, with the leak in Naco, that's probably not gonna happen, but it is a potential threat to Bisbee's water. Right now, the E. coli is only at, what, 25 feet or 20 feet or something, and our water table's down closer to 300.
The issue, we've been doing, actually, the waste, our lab's been doing all the testing for the E. coli. There is quite a bit of it, in surface water, after the rains.
Mhm.
The concern isn't so much the commercial wells that supply Naco and Arizona water here in Bisbee, it's some of the private wells that aren't cement lined.
Mhm.
There's a potential
But
of some,
how deep is that, has that E. coli moved?
well, and
A
that's,
friend of
I
mine
haven't,
is right next to
Yeah,
the spill,
I have
his
not-
well's fine.
he might have lucked out, he might be concrete lined. I haven't seen, I'd have to talk to Carl Hooper at the county, because he's been the lead on that. So I'm not necessarily sure on the private wells, what's been seeing it, because, you know, we've done a lot of private wells as well.
Do you know how large the plume is from Naco?
No, I've not heard, and that's Carl, we were told that it stopped, and it did for a whole day, I think. I heard it's still flowing. I haven't been down there, I haven't had the time.
When did this happen? When was it discovered?
What's been going on, I mean, I remember actually
Really?
over a year ago,
Oh.
I went across to help them fix it, and we did a lot of work and said, this is all you have to do to fix it.
This is Naco, Mexico.
Naco, Mexico, and they didn't follow through with anything. I told them how, I mean, that's what I do, I'm certified to do that, and they didn't wanna do it. So I think, I can't remember now.
There's been sewage spills in Naco, I've been there 14 years, and
Yeah.
there's almost always been a
It,
sewage
it,
spill.
it's been going on for a long time. This one, I think this most recent one's one of the worst, and it
Yeah.
actually happened,
But,
I can't remember, it was a few months ago, it was right right before all the new governments took over. In fact, it happened the night before
Yeah,
the new
right
mayor
before the
of,
new mayor.
sorry, new president of Naco, they call themselves presidents now. The new president of Naco, right before she took office, it was the day before. somebody mysteriously turned on the pump from what I heard, that should never have been turned on, and it blew out a line and was flowing from it was overflowing at 2 spots. I got a call from the police chief, the Bisbee police chief, so I went down to help out and started throwing chlorine. I think it's probably about 3 months now. I
Or
can't remember.
6 months.
No, I think
Yeah.
this one. I don't think this one's been 6.
She was installed as mayor in about July.
I was gonna say
Was it
March.
July?
Yeah.
I thought.
Maybe August,
I think
but
it
I
might
mean,
have-
it might
yeah,
have been August.
I think it was
So
August.
it wasn't that long ago,
Um,
but
So does Carl Hooper at
He's
the
about.
county, does he know how large the plume is?
Yeah, he's been the one monitoring. He's environmental health.
Because there's been publicity about the spill, but not any information about the size of the plume.
Yeah, he's
there
been
was once,
tracking.
I remember, but
Yeah, he's been tracking it pretty well. And there's also the county emergency planner. I can't remember his name.
Well, let me cut to the chase. How close is the plume to the city?
It's not. It's going out towards actually Lad's property because it goes where it's overflowing now. It goes right into Greenbush Draw, but it's on the far end, so it's going away.
The far end is east or west or?
West.
it's west.
It's going
west
west.
of our wells.
It's actually going west of our wells. So at this time, it's not really. This overflow isn't really affecting us, not yet. I mean, there's a potential.
Yeah,
You know, but you know how deep the wells are. I don't suspect. You know, many issues there actually.
So shouldn't we be doing something as the sustainability committee to at least monitor what the county is doing to monitor the plume?
we should certainly know about it. I mean, I don't know what we,
Can do, but,
I mean,
but,
yeah.
but I think we ought to be
I'd like to be more informed.
more
You know,
informed, yeah.
There's really little information for us. I know I got my hepatitis shot because they told all of us in Napa we should do that. I have to get one more.
Yeah, well, I always forget to go back for the second one.
Oh, I had a third. I didn't know it was 3,
Oh, wow.
the second one.
And also, if I could speak on water too, one of the things we're looking at longer term, at the wastewater plant is possibly changing the discharge point from where it is at Greenbush Draw right now. We might be able to percolate on site, and recharge there. And there's also a possibility with
Would that include ponds? Okay, that's,
and repairing, there's a lot of potential there. There's also some potential for, you know, and I'm trying, I don't wanna necessarily get into the politics of it, because that's a mess. There's also some potential to, depending on the different agencies that help monitor San Pedro, there is some interest in some initial engineering being done on recharging at a different point to benefit the San Pedro. You know, I know, but it's not from, this is from different, this is like, Friends of the San Pedro? I can't remember.
my feeling on that is as soon as it helps the San Pedro, developers will say, now we have enough water.
Yeah, exactly.
And there goes the San Pedro. They'll kill it.
There's some potential there, but we are looking in more long-term on different ways. And we're working with the mine too, because the mine, if we recharge on site, that might help keep the sulfite plume,
Yeah.
from
Mhm.
moving.
My thing about the ponds was, on that same visit up to Chandler, I went to the Gilbert Recharge Station, where they have all these ponds, and they kinda cleans and goes from pond to pond to pond. The cleanest one, there's fishing,
Yes.
there's all these beautiful trails. The one in Chandler is actually so pretty, and there's houses overlooking the lake. I mean, it's an incredible,
Nice project.
it's heavily used park. People come there for birding.
So in our earlier discussions on this, we were even talking about it in terms of, would it be something else to draw people to town?
And there's a lot of potential. There's also, you know, and granted, that's more long-term, because once that involves changing of permits and ADQ,
Sure,
you know, there's a lot of stuff like that. It's just, right now, they're just ideas, you know.
Yeah, I
and-
just wanna keep seeing that on the horizon somewhere as a
Oh, yeah.
as a maybe.
I went up, a month or two ago to Pima County. We've been working with Pima County very closely over the past few months. But I went up to their, you know, it's the term now is clean water plants. It's not sewer.
Withrock or something.
Yeah, the one, yeah, the big one, the Rio Nuevo plant.
Yeah, yeah.
And they're doing some really interesting things with clean water. They've actually been able to convince the state legislature to remove the language prohibiting sewer to tap. So there's a potential to start, once you get past the public, they're producing clean enough water in some of their projects up there, you can drink it. They're making beer with it. And so, you know, I
They
mean,
could have a naming contest for that.
yeah, well, and it's,
I think Budweiser's been doing it for years.
But, there, you know, I came to a realization after
That's our
touring their facility that if there's gonna be a solution to the water crisis in the West, it's gonna come out of there, because the things they're doing and they're working with Jacobs. They have Jacobs has a 15-year contract to operate. They designed, built, and operated the new wastewater reclamation facility.
So is Pima County actually doing this sewer to tap?
Yeah, actually, they helped push the legislature to. Now, they're not, they have a truck that they built, designed to build a truck that treats sewage, and at the end of it, they went and they had part of beer contests with this stuff and with this water. That is something that they're doing a lot of research, a lot of work on that with the U of A. They're doing a lot of things, really cool things.
So rather than actually put it into the freshwater pipes, they're trucking it around for people who want potable water.
Well, yeah, I think that right now it's at the.
It's like a demonstration project kind of thing?
Yeah, because to let people know the viability of it, because with this plant this mobile plant that they built, they could, if there's a hurricane, they could go up to the hurricane, drop the one end in, and produce 6 gallons a minute of clean water for people to drink. So if you have no clean water resources, yeah, and right now it's demonstration. You know, it's all about getting the word out.
So have you,
And getting past the yuck factor.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I was. That's exactly the words that we use.
so have you seen any of this personally?
Yeah, I've toured their plant. I've toured their plant and all their labs. No, I don't drink. I gave that up a long time ago.
So if this commission wanted to see it ourselves,
I think I have some contacts in Pima County now. I can contact actually the director of the whole thing and see if you can at least, I can reach out.
I'd love to see that.
And
I would,
Yeah,
I think
I would
the,
too.
Certainly.
I think the commission would like to see.
Yeah, I will, I'll start, you know, in fact, we have every other day, we have the longest, I think he's the longest term Pima County wastewater employee. He's been helping us out until we get, you know, permanent, but I'll reach out and you know, I can't promise anything soon because of my workload, but I will definitely look into it.
I would move that we put this on discussion for our next,
Sure,
Yeah.
our next meeting.
call it sewer to tap.
Yeah, I'll contact Jackson.
What I would specifically like to do is have the commission go see it.
Yeah.
Until you see it, I don't think you can.
Exactly.
But we don't have to put as an action item for the next meeting to discuss whether or not we do. We could go and see it at any time in the interim, couldn't we?
Yes.
No, only, what's the maximum, 2 of us?
And that's you
Three.
have, no, what you can do, you
But we
can,
could-
because
I
I
mean, I
did
could go
this.
one day when I wanna go and.
You could go now, sure.
Yeah.
There's no,
We
we
wouldn't
wouldn't have
do
to
it.
have.
But you can actually do it
But,
as, you can make, because I did it for the streets committee when I was working on the green asphalt project for Bisbee Road, is we noticed that there's a potential quorum on this date, that way we plan a trip, and that
Right.
no city business will be discussed. You just make an announcement and, you know,
Yeah.
this is where you're gonna be at.
There you
But I
go.
can start reaching out and see
Okay.
if they'd be willing to do it. They've done a lot, from speaking to them, they've really helped change the legislature in Arizona about that, and push things forward, especially after the Central Arizona project fiasco in the water and all the problems with that. That kinda turned people off to it, but Pima County's done really, really well. Pima
how
County
did
is,
Central Arizona project affect your water tap to
Well, that
sewer to
changed,
tap.
there was a lot of, because of the water that was coming out of the taps after, it was nasty. And that, my understanding, you know, is that kind of turned people off to the alternatives of providing
Groundwater.
groundwater and things. But Pima County is, I think out of everybody in Arizona, Pima County is definitely the leader in clean water. It's amazing the things that they're doing up there. They've got the best, some of the smartest, you know, talent up there and just amazing things.
So my personal experience with Pima County was that when we were doing our business project, we got a lot of publicity from Pima County, but when we tried to translate it into action,
Yeah.
it was difficult. The bottom line is we were not able to get anything meaningful out of them.
This is more of a city, isn't it?
No,
Or is it Pima, the county?
in Tucson, well, Pima County runs all the sewers for the entire Pima County,
Okay,
other than like, I think Marana bought it out, but they own, operate all the wastewater treatment facilities, sewers, everything. There was an agreement in the late '70s, you know,
good.
yeah, they took it all over.
So to plan this trip, can we don't run into a problem if someone contacts you to make the arrangements for the whole group, do we?
No, generally what it is what I'll do is I'll reach out to Jackson Jenkins, he's the director of Pima County wastewater reclamation, and see if I can get a few dates from him.
Right,
And then usually what I'll do is I'll talk to, I guess technically it's Joe. Joe's the staff liaison,
yeah,
and then he'll or I can talk to Nina or Ashley. And when for boards and committees, I let Nina and Ashley kind of be the one to talk to everybody, because they're the keeper of the quorum rules and everything else, and
Okay.
the meeting laws. And what I'll do is I'll pass along a few dates to them, and then she'll say, hey, these are the three, you know, who would be available for
And
this?
then we respond to her, we
Right,
don't
yeah,
respond to
right.
each other.
Yeah.
yeah, my real question was, when you get back and you get busy, I was thinking you might need a reminder.
Oh yeah, and
And
just
so
whoever.
one of us could
Yeah,
contact you,
just
okay.
send me an
Okay.
email. I use my,
That's legal.
yeah, oh yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and I use my email as my to-do list anyways, it's, okay, that one's archived, I'm done with that one, that one's archived, I'm done with that one.
Good.
Okay. What is your
And your
name?
email is?
D Wallace at bisbeeaz.gov.
The reason I like this is that even if we don't use this for every day immediately, if over the next 10 years we build a capability to make our community more resilient in event of long-term drought.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
oh, yeah. Cause I don't think Bisbee's gonna have a problem in the near term, you don't know what it's gonna be like 25 years from now.
Correct. And maybe we don't have a problem with every day, but we could have a problem in an extended drought.
Drought, yeah,
Yeah, next year that could happen.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah. Good idea. Very good.
Okay.
alright. Should we move on?
Mhm.
So the next one on the list is food security.
And I have no idea what we're supposed to do.
Yeah, I don't know what that
I
means.
don't-
And
I think this is, one of Earl's, considerations.
So I've heard Earl express it, but I never
I don't
got
know
to
what it
what
means.
it
Can't
means.
remember, yeah.
Yeah. So
He
why
was
we should,
he was concerned about food deserts, which is a national movement to provide livable, walkable communities so that
Mhm.
elderly and disabled can get to food resources without getting in a car.
A grocery store in Warren.
Correct. So Earl was very much championing this, but I had no idea what he was
so
proposing.
should we just put this on the next agenda then?
Sure.
Yes.
yeah, I
Okay,
think that's a good idea.
okay. Let's see, 3 is commission member project updates. Do
So.
we have any updates?
So, yeah, I've been working, as many other people in the community have, with rainwater collection. And I briefed this at the last commission meeting. Since that time, the Bisbee Garden Tour has featured along Spring Canyon 3 successive homes with 3 generations of technology of rainwater collection. And that was a very successful garden tour. They featured this water collection as a major aspect of this year's tour because there were 3 homes doing the water collection right in the same area. So people could get a look at different ideas, different technologies.
I went to
And
the one
different
at the
scale
bottom.
too.
The one at the bottom was the most recent, and it's the most
Oh,
impressive.
yeah.
I mean, it's.
And you're up the canyon?
I'm the one farthest up the canyon,
Oh,
so
I
my
missed
system
your
is,
star.
so my system is the oldest,
Ah.
but the one at the bottom, they're all really close together. It's
Yeah,
not like they're.
how much farther up?
Was
are
that
you?
those 3 houses that were together on the garden? We
Yes.
went on the garden tour, those were the 3 houses?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and they featured, your organization featured rainwater collection as a commonality among those 3.
Well, yeah, no, I'm not part of it, I just won the tour.
Yeah, but yeah, that was a very successful, there was a lot of community interest, a lot of people came out to see those water projects.
Good for you. I didn't know you were in that.
So that was,
And U of A Extension has, their water harvesting programs too, and I think that's something the city should,
I would like us to see what kind of containers we could get cheap,
yes.
reasonably cheap,
right,
to offer to like my mother, to like your sister, to the corner of Joe Blow's house,
right.
and
Well,
start.
buy in bulk, get it
Yes.
down here and make them
Yes.
more affordable, because I look at them and they're so
And
expensive.
then the gutter.
Well, also you need heavy equipment to move if it's anything bigger than a 55-gallon rain
Yeah.
collection barrel, you need heavy equipment to move it.
But if we
And-
could come up with the access, people would, I think, would be enthused.
So I would say from the garden tour results, where the public was very enthused.
Mhm.
Very
I was
enthused.
very impressed. All the ones in Warren they did on the water harvesting, oh, it was a great tour.
Yeah.
And then the ones out in the valley, we went to all those homes. Earl and I went on a tour out there, oh yeah.
I've also, subsequent to this, I've been looking into it's the opposite of modular. It's unitary construction of rainwater and even gray water filtering and use. So it used to be that if you, it takes four subsystems to do a collection and distribution. It takes a storage container from 55 to 10,000 gallons. It takes some sort of purification process, and I don't mean to produce potable water, I mean just to produce water that doesn't smell.
Irrigation
Gray
or
water.
toilet flushing, that sort of thing.
Well, you don't really ever it's not legal in Arizona to put the toilet water into the system.
No,
But
toilet
it's-
flushing.
But
Yeah,
you,
Oh,
so if you're really sophisticated, you can put water to flush your toilet
Yes.
in the air.
Yeah.
But that gets into then you've got, well, let me just say the
Yeah.
4 things. It takes a tank, takes a pump, takes a sophisticated filtering system, and it takes a really complicated sensor system. And before last year, the homeowner that wanted to install this was faced with the prospect of buying all 4 subcomponents separately
exactly.
and not knowing whether the individual pieces were sized properly for the rest of the getup, right? So yes, you could hire your landscaper to install your tank and put your lines in and all of that, but just to give you an example of what problem I faced, I have when you buy a pump, you have both the lift and the head, and I'm sure Dwayne is well familiar with those terms. But when I got into this business, I had no idea what I was going to do with lift and head. That was just foreign language. And the size of the pump varies pretty dramatically. You know, a 160-foot lift is quite different than a 160-foot head. So then you don't know, well, do I need a half horsepower pump or do I need a 4 horsepower pump? And there's a lot of energy difference. And it could defeat the whole purpose of your being environmentally sensitive if you bought the wrong size pump. So it's a big problem. Well, anyway, in the last year, there's a company that is now building unitary systems where the filter and the pump and the tank are all sized to be compatible.
Super.
Nice,
So,
nice.
so that's a very exciting prospect that this technology
Is it solar?
It could be. The
That's
pump,
next, huh?
the pump is built so that it can be powered by solar. And there's an advantage in that because one of the things about solar power is it only is there when the sun shines. But if you're doing it to do irrigation and water circulation, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Right? So it's ideal for solar.
Yeah.
But the way the company is selling them now, this water system does not have any inherent solar power connected to it. But that's any reason, that's the next step,
Yeah.
right? So,
James, clarify, this is for grey water?
no,
No.
it's either for rainwater or gray water,
Uh-huh.
Or gray water, yeah.
or gray water.
And who's the company?
Oh, afraid I can't remember.
Okay,
A Google search will reveal it, and I'll try to bring it.
yeah.
If someone would remind me, I'll bring the material to the next meeting and show you the potentials. I like the potential of using it in Bisbee because it reverts from a big contractor-driven operation to
Homeowner.
homeowner,
Yeah,
right?
that's what I need.
And Arizona Water will actually give you some help. I didn't know that, but I went to their office and they said, sure, we'll help you do it.
Wow.
So,
That's here in Bisbee.
it's in Bisbee, yeah.
Oh,
Anyway, that's, so my update on my project was my continuing interest with many others into rainwater collection.
yeah, where we can find the source of
Correct.
collectors for the people in
Correct.
town.
And as you probably remember, at that time when I was interested in gray water, I was interested in how microclimates might affect the availability of rain depending on what your elevation at your property was and which side of the mountain you might be on. You remember that discussion?
Yes, very much.
As near as I can tell, my personal experience is not matched by the community as a whole. As a matter of fact, what I found out was the community as a whole is declining in year-to-year annual rainfall. And so that's a very important part of how we plan for sustainability is, well, if the community as a whole is getting worse and worse and worse in terms of water sustainability, but yet individual properties, because of where they are on the mountain and where they are in elevation, may be different. So we have to be very cautious about how we advertise that and discuss it.
I have a rain gauge for the state, and before that I had my own, so I've been monitoring water for 17, 18 years. And my average rainfall has been, you can watch it, I mean, then I have a good year and then it goes back down. This year so far, I've only had about 12 and a half, no, after that last rain, just over 13 inches. And we should be 18-ish around here.
Right.
Mhm.
So,
And I haven't hit that for a while.
For
And that-
several years, you haven't had?
Yeah, I'd have to look back. I think I did a couple of years ago. It went up to 19 or 20, and but this year I'm not going to come anywhere near it unless we get a sudden crazy November, December storm.
so I'm trying to do this scientifically with actual measurements and logs, but I didn't get started in this soon enough to have anything
Sure.
that's meaningful at any historical record at
Yeah.
all. But I'm starting,
Good.
and ask me again in 10 years and I may have records later.
What's nice, you can learn some by going to Rainlog. I think it's .net. And you can't find out who lives where, and you won't get the exact address, but you can click on anybody's water thing and it will show you their water for the year.
Interesting.
Yeah, And so, you know, I can click here and there and here and there and see, oh, I'm at like 11 inches right now, but over in Hereford, they're at 19.3 inches, you know.
Well, that's just it. What I found that I think I can pretty conclusively show from my data and yours as well, is that you could literally be 500 feet more up the mountain and your rain
It's completely different.
completely different.
Yeah. Well, across town, across Naco, my neighbor called me once because it was pouring at her house. It wasn't doing anything at my house. You know, 6 blocks.
Yeah, is that,
I was at dinner in Naco, Sonora, watching this incredible storm, mile and a half south of the border. I mean, the trees were like this, the streets were running like crazy. We were saying, can we even get home? It was dry on the north side of the border. It's just weird.
So is there anything here for us to
No,
take to that we wanna explore further to take to the city? Or is the city doing any kind of like public education or anything like that about waste, about water harvesting systems?
No, we do not have the staff to do that.
Mhm.
but nonprofit groups are doing it.
Nonprofit, U of A, I think, is, in fact, U of A,
yeah.
a few months ago, when they had the International Boundary Water Commission meeting here, somebody from U of A came and they were explaining about their water harvesting. They actually have a project up in Tucson where, you know, we all know how little rain they get up in Tucson, but they're able to completely, just with using, rain catchment and low water use, so that they have a house there that they can go through the summer with and not use any water from off the meter. Just, but, you know, they purify all the rainwater to drink and everything else like that, so.
I visited some, they have rainwater tours there that are just outstanding. All, the guttering system all had filters and it went to these huge storage tanks underground. And they could open a thing and say, oh yeah, we've got this much water right now. And they, this was years ago, and they used almost nothing off the meter.
So one of the things that I found curious when I got in touch with Arizona Water Company is they're willing to help. They're very
That's
much
amazing.
willing to help, but they're strongly pushing underground storage.
Oh, is that right?
There's no evaporation, for one.
Well, I don't know why they're choosing a technology. Is that an appropriate thing to do, or should the homeowner or the investor,
Yeah, exactly.
should they be deciding the technology?
What kind of help do they provide?
They basically provide literature and research from University of Arizona Extension.
Okay.
And I believe that if you convert to a system like that, they have some site survey support that they will do and say.
Oh, okay, cause my first thought was that they dig the hole for the underground storage tank was my
So,
first thought of why
so
they
I have not
okay.
asked them to do that, but they might.
Really?
I have not asked them to do that. The reason I have not is, I'm not sure I wanna do underground storage
You're
on
catching.
my property. It's about double the cost of surface.
Yeah, cause just to dig the hole is gonna be
Correct.
Well,
expensive.
and then just all the, you know, I would assume you'd have to be very careful about what you do, Barry, because you don't want something that might potentially become a void or cave in, because then you have
Right.
its own other problem, you know.
Or an
Well,
underground leak.
well, a lot of times these below ground water storage tanks aren't buried. A lot of times they won't even have dirt on top, like what I've seen, was in Atlanta where we lived before. They'll have like a patio over top of the storage tank.
Oh.
So there's some sort of support or something on top of the tank, and then there's like concrete pavers on top of that. So that's kind of how they get around that one.
Oh, good.
So I do know that if you are gonna put the water underground, even if you have it, underground avoids a common problem of a tank that's above ground, which is algae growth. Algae growth can be a big problem.
Oh, yeah.
But if you put it underground, it cuts off the natural light, and then algae won't grow as much in it. That's to me the big advantage from an engineering perspective, is that the tank underground that is not exposed to this. I don't see any real disadvantage to the underground except for cost.
The tank has to be of a heavier
Does it?
construction? No, that's a question.
Well, I've never been exposed to that as a potential problem.
Okay.
To me, it would be the other way around, that the tank above ground would have to be stronger because there's no adjacent, above ground, there's no adjacent support. Whereas if you plant the tank below ground, you're gonna fill around it and you're gonna have support from the earth around the tank.
Yeah,
Like a
but then,
swimming pool.
But they-
but the
you have to-
problem is when you deplete the tank, that it could collapse with the pressure of the.
So I didn't say any of these solutions were without problems. On the tanks above ground, I know from personal experience, if you drain them below 20% of their capacity, it's subject to wind. No, I'm serious, this is a serious issue. You don't,
Especially around March.
You haven't-
I would assume.
well, you have never lived until you've had a 2,500 gallon tank blowing across your driveway.
That's that big green one.
That's a big one.
Have you painted any of your tanks for the algae?
No, I've bought, non-transparent tanks,
Ah,
right?
ah.
So, they're supposed to be algae proof.
Is it working?
I don't know, I haven't had it for a year,
Okay. Let me know.
you know?
We
Haven't
need-
had it for a year.
we need the info.
So my eventual goal is to have 10,000 gallons.
And you have 125 at the moment.
I have one 2,500 at the moment, but I've sited the electricity and the irrigation lines for all 4 tanks. So my plan is, I'll go through one season, I'll see how much I collect out of one season, and then I'll plan the build out from there. I can't tell you absolutely for certain that a 500 gallon tank is too small. I started out with a 500 gallon tank, first rain, filled up,
Yeah.
right?
I have a 50-gallon tank, so
But you
can
gotta use
imagine.
it.
I can't, the size of my property on Spring Canyon, I can't use it. Can't use it fast enough.
Spray each other.
Can't use it fast enough.
That's the problem, is we get all our rain at the same time.
Right.
So everything fills
Yes.
up,
Yeah.
you can't collect anymore, then the rains are gone, and then you start to use it and then it's empty,
Exactly.
you know?
So I've had my system on Spring Canyon we bought the property in 2008 and we put the rain collection in 2010. And I've never gone through a season where I could use it all.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, right, but it's not really doing anything. It's not what I want. What I want is to have measurements on the rainfall and what the capacity is. I wanna get